Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Champion. This is my co-host, Bill Carnes, and together we are totally unprepared. And to show how unprepared we are, you have some things that he just told me, like just before he went on, that there's some stuff he wants to talk about. We didn't even talk to me about it. So what do you want to talk about, Bill?
Man, I got to tell you, I am hurting today, but not as bad as I was. I went to bed Saturday, everything's fine. I wake up Sunday morning, for whatever reason, the way I slept, my shoulder below the scapula and on top, the whole thing inflamed, killing me. But I had committed to playing in a charity softball game with the VFW versus the girls' high school softball team. And this is the second year we've done this. Raises money and awareness for both groups. And so I got up, and I have one of those little like electric massage things you put on there, right? I tried to get it better. The pulsing? Yeah, I tried to get it better. Put some of that salve on there to try to heat it up and make it better. Went out there and played, and I was on third base, which was a very, very busy position. Lots of fielding, I think I was up to bat 5 times, lots of hitting, lots of running around. And by that night, I got to tell you, I truly understood the medicinal purposes of alcohol.
I was waiting to see what word was going to come out after medicinal purposes.
And then the next morning, Monday morning, I wake up, and of course, my lower half is very tired from running around, fielding balls, running around the bases and everything. And then my shoulder was still hurting. Went and got it beat up by a massage therapist for about a half hour. This is the first day it's actually relatively bearable. Yet last night we had the caucus. I'll talk about that in my segment. But it was hurting quite a bit that night. So grinning and bearing, trying to get through. But today it's actually reasonable.
So everybody got their public relations thing going on with the game? It was a big success for
It was very good. It was fun. We lost by, I think, 5 runs. Last year we won by 1, but that's only because the girls laid up. This year they didn't lay up. Well, not much. I think they took it relatively easy on us, but they didn't throw the game to us. And we're actually leading the game into, I think, the 5th inning, I believe it was. It was very close, and then we had one inning where we just, I'm the youngest guy on the team. I'm 46. Everybody's getting a little bit tired. The 6th inning comes in, and they just started smacking us silly.
Oh, so you got beat by girls.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So the big news this week is Apple and the FBI.
Yes.
Shall we chat about that for a little bit?
Yeah, there's a couple of viewer emails that we got about that. So I know people want to talk about it, but I'm thinking if we talk about that, which is a really sexy thing, too early, they might turn off the show. And we have a couple other things we want to get to.
Okay, we'll hold off Apple for a little later in the show.
Let's do that. So we have a guest this week, in fact. Do you want to set this up?
Sure, I do. You remember, it's one of these cameras, you'll recall about 3 weeks ago I talked about a young man who had been falsely arrested. You probably remember this story. It had to do with a blue mixer. Remember that whole deal? And that he told them the truth. A secondary witness told him the truth. Then they called a third witness that told him this. All the same stories were cohesive, showing the young man was completely innocent. And then they took him down and arrested him for 4 felonies and booked him in. So I thought, when I tell you these stories, it's because I think the community needs to know what's going on here with this sheriff's department and how these deputies are acting. But you're still hearing it secondhand from me. So I thought it would be a great idea to have the young man in the studio today, and we have him right here. Hunter, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. So I asked Hunter to come on because I know Hunter personally, but you don't. And I always think it's important when government is abusing its powers and it's harming innocent citizens, you get an opportunity to really see the real live flesh and blood person that's being harmed by the governmental abuse, in this case, police abuse.
As a matter of fact, you're being bookended by it. Not to rob from you, but remember that happened to me June 1st, and it just happened to you. What was the date?
It was January 29th.
January 29th, and it was a Friday afternoon.
Yes, it was.
Which is the perfect opportunity to put you in there and spend the weekend.
Yep.
And, again, not trying to steal his thunder, or yours, it appears I'm up to bat number 3 from what we learned just an hour ago.
Yeah, just about an hour ago.
You remember the story about Joseph McGill, where he tried to come into a restaurant. Well, he was in a restaurant. He came up to me and attempted to intimidate me into silence. And it's not my way to file formal complaints over BS like that normally. But it's good to get it on the record when a dirty cop approaches you and tries to intimidate you. It's not my way, but I've learned the system works in a particular way. Okay, so the wisest course of action is to go ahead and file an official complaint. So it's a matter of public record. So I filed a complaint with the Sheriff's Department, and I find out today, now the investigator who's tasked with investigating the complaint against Joseph McGill is asking witnesses, so at what point did Dave Champion strike the deputy? Okay, this gives you some idea of the dirtiness, the rottenness that's going on in the Nye County Sheriff's Department. So again, didn't mean to steal your thunder or yours.
Yeah, no
Let's
problem.
talk about your situation for a minute.
Sure.
Excuse me. So let's go back and tell the stories so that people hear it from you, not me.
Yeah.
So Friday, January 29th.
Right.
You just said, why don't you tell the story? Then
I'm
you started.
giving the date. I'm giving the date. So you're at your house,
Yeah.
and what happens?
Well, I actually went home early from work. Felt pretty under the weather. I was taking a nap, and next thing I knew, I was waking up to banging on the windows, banging on the doors. Pretty startled at that moment because I had no idea what was going on. And
So this was not merely a polite knock on the door.
Oh no, no, they were. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't come in. How forcefully it was, really. And I saw the officer outside of my window, and he asked who I was, and I was like, I told him who I was. I let him know right away, and I realized
I'm the guy that's inside the house. You're the guy that's outside the house.
So I went to the front door, and of course there was an officer waiting there for me, and he wanted to speak, and I was like, sure. Like, asked him what was going on, and that's of course when they started to ask me about the green keyboard that I had no idea about. It was very forcefully. The interrogation. I mean, the entire time it was as if I had committed a murder or something, and I had no idea what was going on.
So just to clarify for the audience,
Yeah.
you didn't feel that you were merely being asked questions.
Yeah, not at all. No.
It was more than that.
They seemed pretty confident that I was guilty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the way it was approached.
So
which
very aggressive questioning.
it was very aggressive, yeah. Which I can understand in some situations. That's the way you'd want to be, but they approached it with, like you said on your previous show, a keyboard, and I had no idea what they were talking about, as I had only owned 2 keyboards in my life.
Right.
And I had them both.
And we're talking also about a property crime, of which this is not like a huge threat to society or anything. So to
Right.
be coming on that strong with the questioning
Yeah.
shows oftentimes boredom. Well, we haven't had any hot calls in a while. We're a little
Right.
bored. We're going to try to make this something.
Yeah.
The tough guy mentality.
Yeah.
Exactly. And after it came out that he brought up, well, you took this to Super Pawn and you got $200 for it, and I was like, wait a minute, okay, that sounds familiar. This was several months after I'd actually sold it to Super Pawn.
This is months later.
This is months later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was under the impression it was weeks, but this is months later.
Well-
Which again lends to the aggressiveness because months later, this is very serious.
Yeah. Well, the officer said that I had sold that keyboard 2 weeks prior. Okay, and so that threw me off. I was like, I haven't been to Super Pawn in quite some time. And that's when I clarified. I was like, no, it was actually a mixer, and I had sold that several months ago. And I asked, I was like, you understand why I was a little confused at first, right? Because they were all like automatically accusing me, like, hey, we're trying to help you out here. You need to help us out, acting as if I was lying.
Anytime cops talk to you, they're not trying to help you.
I learned this. I'm aware now. So that came out, and
Isn't it a shame that you went into this from the perspective, if I can help by telling the truth, I'm glad to help?
And my mother was an officer,
Right.
and she was best woman I've ever known in my life. Not to be biased because she's my mother, but a fantastic woman. And I legitimately wanted to help these officers out.
So your mother was a cop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you entered into this thing with the thing, if I can help and tell the truth,
Yeah.
I will. Okay.
Exactly.
And how did you come out of it? Just to jump ahead for a second. As far as mindset, how did you come out of this whole deal? Are you looking to help the cops the next time?
No, at least not around here. I mean,
Okay.
Is your mother disappointed that she's now got a son who's a multiple felon?
she is. She's very
bet she
disappointed.
is.
She's ready to fly out here. No kidding.
All right, by the way, the aggressiveness, how many deputies were questioning you?
Well, I'll say only one was questioning me, but
Okay.
there were 3 at the location. Both of them, quite postured.
Okay.
And in fact, when I realized what they were talking about and I wanted to help them out, I was like, yeah, I can call and get her name right now. I didn't even know the woman's name. And so I called and I
You're
got...
talking to the woman you bought it from.
Yes, the woman that I had bought the mixer from originally, who brought it into the store, which it actually sat open and for everybody to see for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, It just sat there before I actually made the move and said, I think I want to buy it. So I called, and I got her name, and I let them know her name. And then they brought up a statement for me to start filling out and whatnot. And it was pretty funny because as I was filling it out, I had forgot the last name that I'd gave them. And I asked one of the officers there, like, hey, do you remember the last name I just gave you? Because I was trying to write the statement.
Right.
And the officer just stood there and said, no, I'm the guy they send in case you run. And I'm like barefoot standing out there. I'm like, okay. I'm like legitimately trying to help these guys out, being very respectful. And I mean, the entire time, it was as if I was a criminal who, killed one of their own. It was insane. I really couldn't believe it. But yeah, it went on. I wrote the statement out, and as you said in your previous show, they called the owner of the store.
Before we get there, though, because
Yeah.
in the timeline, there was something that you shared with me just recently that I didn't know when I did that show.
Okay.
Which was that while they had you, I think it was the point they'd already handcuffed you and put you in the car.
Yeah.
A friend of yours pulled up.
Yep.
Okay, so tell that part, because I didn't share that with the audience because I didn't know it at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, she showed up, and she's also a part owner of the establishment. And
The establishment where
the
it
mixer
sat
had
up-
originally
okay.
came. Yep. And so they talked to the majority owner the first time, and he let them know exactly what I let them know. It completely corroborated what I had said, I'm assuming, because I'm telling the truth, and so does he. And she came along, and she corroborated it as well. Let them know exactly what happened. And as I sat in the back of the car, and I don't know how the conversation went beyond that, as I was sitting in the back cuffed, but
Not able to be part of it.
right, exactly.
Okay. Now, in subsequent conversations with your friend that showed up at your house and the store owner,
Yep.
Obviously they shared with you, after the fact,
Yeah.
what they shared with the deputies during those conversations.
Yes.
And if I understand correctly, they both told the deputies there was no way you could have known that was stolen.
Yeah, they made very certain that we had no idea it was stolen. There's no way he could have known that it was stolen. He works for us when we need help.
Okay, so the store owner, in whose store it was sitting,
Yeah.
did not know it was stolen.
Correct.
The minority owner of the store,
Yep.
in whose store it was sitting,
Yep.
did not know it was stolen.
Yeah.
You then saw it there. You expressed an interest in it. You purchased it.
Yep.
They come knocking at your door. Hang on one second. And then these two co-owners tell the deputies there's no way that Hunter could have known this was stolen.
Correct.
Because we didn't know, and it's our store.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want to clarify that,
Yes.
that I got everybody who's saying what to whom and when.
Yeah.
Bill.
We're going to continue to the next segment.
Oh, okay.
This is getting good.
Okay.
And we'll be
We'll
back.
be right back. That'll be my signal.
And we are back. And people get to see a little bit of my leg ink today. They never get to see that, but they get to see it today. So
I'd show you my leg ink, but it's still healing.
Right, if you have ink, it means your daughter wrote on your leg.
No, it means I slid into third base.
Ah, is that what it is? Okay. All right, so we have our guest, Hunter Franklin, with us, who's been telling us about his encounter with some Nye County deputy sheriffs. And so rather than me give that the punchline, let's just keep going with the story. Yeah. We were at the point where they had already interviewed you. They'd interviewed the minority owner of the store, the majority owner of the store.
Yep.
They had detained you in handcuffs in the back of the patrol unit.
Yep.
And so let's pick it up from there.
Well, after that, they informed the minority and majority owner of the store that they were taking me in on one charge, and that was possession of stolen property, which I believe, as you know, under the statute, if you have to have knowledge of it being stolen in order
Yeah, the statute actually says, uses the word no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not guess, speculate, could be, scratch your head. No.
Right.
And that's what we like to call an element of a crime. In order to have probable cause, in order to arrest and also to prosecute, you have to have elements that add up to the crime. And in most crimes, especially most all felonies, when it comes to something like this, you have to have any of a set of 2 or 3 things plus any of a set of 2 or 3 things or a set of 5 or 6 other things. Right. And you've got to be able to piece that puzzle together.
Right.
Like burglary, if you know you're going to walk into a building and punch somebody in the face and leave, that's technically burglary because you're entering into an occupied structure with intent to commit assault, battery, petty larceny, grand larceny, assault or battery. That's the way that works out, with the intent to walk in to do it. So you could walk into a room, punch somebody in the face, and walk back out. having known that you were going to do that, that's burglary. So the elements to the crime. So what you're telling us is they didn't have that element of the crime, that you knew that you had stolen property.
Certainly, yeah.
Because otherwise, I would have bought it off you for $100. No, I'm just kidding. You put that on Craigslist. You don't take it to a pawn shop or something.
Right,
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes sense for anybody who knows that an item is stolen to not take it to a pawn shop, like a really well-known pawn shop.
In your own small town.
Right.
There's only one pawn shop here.
Right. You want my ID? Sure, here you go. Here's all my
Yeah.
information. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, take that crap out to Henderson or
Right.
Boulder City or something.
Yeah, at least. Right.
Yeah.
All right, so they notify them they're going to take you down on one count,
Yeah.
possession of stolen property, and what happens from there?
Well, when I get there, after waiting so long, the booking officer, when they finally start to process me, tells me that I'm there on 3 felonies. You said 4, so just to correct you on that,
Oh,
3 felonies.
okay.
But
Dave, what are you doing? Stacking charges?
And I was confused too, and you guys should know. They said the first felony was possession of stolen property, acquiring money under false pretenses,
Right.
okay, and acquiring stolen property. Now, that's what the booking officer told me, and I wanted to ask him, like, what possession of stolen property and acquiring stolen property, like, how is that not the same thing? But
It's called stacking charges.
okay.
Now, some departments don't do that. They refuse to do that, or they rarely do that, because what they do is take the strongest charge you've got and do that, so we can investigate the one, send it off to the DAs,
Right.
ready to prosecute. Otherwise, they just stack all kind. It's like, you know, throwing a whole bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
That's what stacking charges
Okay.
is. So that's what they tried that with me. They're trying that with you.
Right.
Now, stacking charges also, the presumption is that at least one is legally viable.
Right.
And then they stack more questionable things on.
Sure, absolutely.
I think everybody who's watching can see that in Hunter's case, they had 0. There was nothing that was credible.
And it becomes a bargaining chip too. It's like, hey, you were originally charged with 3 felonies.
Exactly.
We're gonna as a negotiation, we'll forget about the other 2 if you're
yeah.
willing to plead to a lesser of this.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of reasons to it, and what it is,
It's still corrupt.
It's chicken shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so you're in booking. What goes on there?
Well, I was in the booking cell for probably, I don't know, 3 hours. It sounds about right. They forgot to feed me, actually, which was pretty interesting. Don't know how that happened, but...
Everybody got fed but you?
Well, I didn't see a tray go around. Otherwise, I would have said... Now that I think about it, though, it may have been medication. I don't know. But
Okay.
all I know is I didn't get food. And I ended up at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night asking, like, what's going on? Like, I've been here since 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and nobody's brought any food around. But, I mean, I guess that's a pretty petty part of it. But regardless, after that, I mean, I essentially just sat in jail for the weekend and had no idea why.
Now, you told me that while you were being booked, a jail deputy
That's right, yeah.
came over to you,
Yep.
and he had some things to say to you. So
Right.
share with the audience that.
Well, he came in. He's the first one who read me my Miranda rights. He asked me if I still wanted to talk to him, and I said, yeah, sure. Like, why not? And so he starts to ask me, go through the situation. I let him know exactly what I let the officers know, with the previous officers. And I noticed something after about 2 or 3 times of having to reiterate, I did not know that this item was stolen. He keeps saying, well, certainly you must have had a hunch that it was stolen, right? You must have known that it was stolen, right? I mean, and 4 times I had to reiterate, no, I had no idea. I had no reason to believe that it was stolen. And I mean, like, she's a customer at her store. Like, it's good faith, you know, that we buy items from people who bring it in.
Right. How can you imagine that every single secondhand item is stolen?
Exactly.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
And Bill, you probably caught this immediately, and I want to share it with the audience. What this means is
They're filling in the holes.
well, they need probable cause to arrest. They're in the process of booking him, and they're still trying to generate the probable cause they didn't have for the arrest.
That's exactly what happened to me. I was booked on a charge that they didn't have probable cause for. He tried to fill it by interviewing somebody at DMV who didn't provide them anything to do with law. Just, well, as far as I know, it's this, that, or the other. So, yeah, they send this person in to try to fill in because they don't have the elements.
Right.
So they're trying to lead you into the elements. By the way, just so everybody understands, not a good idea to ever talk to cops. It's just not, because you can't get anything more than what you've already, whatever you've got right now. The best you can hope for is to keep that. But every word you say to cops works towards the end of having less than what you've got right now, namely your freedom for at least a little while.
Yeah.
So speaking of freedom for a little while, how long was a little while for you?
Well, it was just over 3 days.
3 days.
When did you get out?
It would have been Monday around 5 or 6.
Okay, so were you OR'd?
Yes.
Okay, so 3 felonies and a judge. What judge did you see? Who OR'd
Kent.
you? Ron Kent.
Yeah. Seemed like a pretty good guy.
Now, again, Bill and I are familiar with this. The audience may not. Nobody gets OR'd on 3 felonies.
Rarely. Very, very rarely.
So somebody realized that this was a nonsense case.
And Ron Kent was the chief deputy district attorney for many years out here, ran for district attorney. This guy knows criminal law. You know, I mean, he's done this a lot. And if he's going to OR you on something, he's going to be looking at saying, I don't really see a whole lot here.
Right. Okay.
So there's a lot of things that are telltale signs. I would imagine the way this is probably going to go is the DA will not charge you with anything because they're going to look at it. Same thing as me. As a matter of fact, I finally got my letter just yesterday that says that they've declined to prosecute me because there wasn't a case there.
No.
I just got that, and I would imagine you will inevitably get one of those as well. And
I presume.
I wonder how long it'll be before they finally send it over to the district attorney's office.
And let's point out also that so the audience understands what you and I already understand, and you and I have talked about it. It is almost unheard of for somebody who's been accused of 3 felonies to come on a show like this and talk publicly. And you already have an attorney.
Yep.
And normally, no way in hell would a defendant in a criminal matter with felonies come on a show and talk. And Hunter and I talked about this beforehand. And I pointed out this is just not done. And Hunter's response to me was, I have nothing to hide. I'll tell the truth to anybody who wants to listen.
Yeah.
Because I know Hunter personally, I would not want to do anything that would harm him in his case. But again, knowing his character, knowing his integrity, and knowing what really went down, I couldn't see any landmines for him coming on here.
Yeah.
Because the story, as it unfolded, there's nothing to hurt him. And he is the victim in this at the hands of bad cops.
It seems like this sort of thing with these bad arrests have been happening more and more under the new administration. And I don't know if the sheriff is aware of this or keeping tally of it, or if maybe the cops are just getting away with it. And, one of those things, what gets measured gets done, and what goes unchecked goes unabashed.
Well,
I wonder what the scenario is here.
A person in town hearing of his situation contacted the sheriff, Sharon Worley, and said, what are you doing with this young man? And the way the story is told, Sharon said, let me check up on it. And she called the person back, and she said, well, the young man in question, I know you love hearing this, admitted that he knew it was stolen and admitted to the deputies he was planning to buy more stolen things from her. Now,
do you want to buy some unstolen stuff? I get a lot of crap for sale.
I'm not interested in unstolen.
No? Okay. Yeah.
Just the stolen
Just the hot stuff?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. I'm hearing this story, right, what Sharon said, and I'm looking at the declaration of arrest, right?
And the declaration of arrest is contrary to what she's actually saying.
It says it didn't even rise to the level of probable cause for the arrest. It actually says right in the report that a particular deputy told another deputy. This is how it's written.
I remember reading
it.
It's
childish.
Yeah.
One deputy told another deputy that he said that he thought perhaps it might have been stolen. That doesn't even meet the burden of the statute. What are you doing, right? So the actual declaration of arrest screams, hey, we don't have any probable cause for this arrest.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, if Hunter had said such absurd things, and if the audience, you hear him, he's an intelligent young man. Even if he was a guilty young man, he would not say, oh, yeah, I knew it was stolen. I'm going to go back and get some more of that stuff, right? Yeah. But had you said that, where would that have featured prominently? in the declaration of arrest. Right.
Obviously.
So, yeah, quite obviously. So here is the sheriff. Yeah, I'm saying it. Here's the sheriff coming back with this cockamamie BS story, not supported even by the paperwork her own deputies filed. So when you say you're seeing this stuff happening since the new administration, and then we look at something so absurd as the sheriff coming back with this cockamamie fairy tale that the paperwork filed for her own deputies does not support, I don't think there's a question why we're seeing it in this administration.
Then from there, what we need to do is figure out a solution. And we'll be back in the next segment right after this. Welcome back. We are carrying on with our guest, Hunter, and we were just talking something about a scenario with the this property that you bought at the secondhand store, and then you ended up selling to the pawn. You didn't pawn it; you sold it to the pawn shop.
Right. Yeah.
That they ended up having the lady who was behind originally stealing this on charges. Go ahead, tell us about.
Yeah. What? And this is to my understanding. They let the owners of the store know that there were already charges against her. Well, things brought up that were related to that burglary. And not to mention warrants out for her arrest. They'd apparently been looking for her for quite some time. So it seemed odd to me.
Her being the woman who brought the mixer into the secondhand store to begin with.
The woman you bought it from.
Yes, which it was pretty odd to us to hear that and wonder, like, well, if you already know that she's involved with this and you already know that she's the perpetrator,
Why wrap you up?
Yeah.
Somebody else stole it, not you.
Exactly.
Right,
we didn't understand that. Well, here's where the story gets pretty interesting. Just recently, actually, on last Saturday, a buddy of mine had a check that we were going to try and cash at the bank, and we showed up and the bank was closed. We're like, oh, just another day. We can't cash this check. But it was awesome because, sure enough, I saw her 10 feet away, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is my chance. And I said, hey, and I won't say her
So wait,
name.
they got warrants for her.
And she's out at Smith's.
She's at Smith's Food King.
Yes, with some guy. I presume maybe been her father, I don't know. And so I saw her and I said hello, and because I hadn't had any contact with her, I assumed that she probably knew something was up, but she acted nonchalant. She's like, oh hey, haven't seen you in a while.
I would have had her in a headlock, dragging her into the store.
I didn't want to go that route just yet. So
did you tell your buddy, hey, call the cops or anything?
Well, that's just it. He didn't have his phone on him. I didn't have my phone on me. There was a lady going by with a cart, and I was like, ma'am. And I explained to her the situation as quickly as I could, and I was like, can I borrow your phone really quick? And so I called who I could and eventually got a hold of the deputies. And unfortunately, the original deputies who arrested me weren't on...
Oh, weren't on duty.
Yeah.
That may be for the best.
Sure, probably. So
round two.
Yeah, no kidding. I probably would have ended up.
Oh, you're in her presence.
Oh, wait, hold on. Now you're colluding.
That confirms
exactly.
your guilt. Yeah. Okay.
So I finally got a hold of somebody. I went outside. I asked a couple of the people there, like, this is the only entrance and exit to this building, right? And I secured the location essentially, and I waited outside. I waited for a squad car to pull up. Squad car finally pulled up. He was actually like on the other side of the parking lot. I didn't understand why. I approached him. And I was like, hey, maybe you want to go up by the entrance so that, if she leaves, she doesn't just get away from you guys. And he was like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so he did. Yeah. So I go in there and I try to guide him, and he ends up finding her in the area. And he was certainly a lot nicer, and he seemed like a nice guy. He was a younger cop, a lot nicer to her than they were to me. Walked her around, let her go to the bathroom. They didn't let me go to the bathroom. I ended up having to hold it for several hours. It was pretty annoying, but totally different topic entirely.
But they picked her up.
So they finally picked her up. And I just kind of want to say this part just to have it on record, and I'm going to actually file a report about this. I did approach the officer afterwards when he was speaking to her and the man that she was with, and I asked, would you like me to file a report or make a statement? And he said, no, we've got it from here, which I thought was kind of odd considering I was the one who, got a hold of everybody and had the whole thing. Right. Usually they would take your statement.
And you're the one who purchased it from her.
Yeah.
No one can testify to that but you.
Exactly.
Right.
So he said no, and I was like, oh, okay. And I started to walk away, and that man started threatening me, saying, all sorts of stuff, acting like she had never stolen before. And
oh, wait, the guy she was with was threatening you?
Yeah, he started threatening me.
Did you go punch him in the face?
I did not. No, not in that moment. Didn't think that was a very good idea. But he actually started taking pictures of me in the vehicle that I was in. So, and I thought that was, pretty shady. Like, why would you? I mean, obviously she has warrants out. Obviously she's gotten into trouble, and now you're just standing here trying to defend her.
Home team.
Yeah.
It's home team.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's actually where we are today. So I still need to go actually file a report just so they know
About the threats.
about the threats. In case anything happens in the future, you know, I definitely want to have the facts on my side.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I have to deal with those sorts of things pretty regularly. So I don't like to take things for granted when somebody threatens me.
No
by
kidding.
any means. Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. And
So,
that's where we are today.
I'll leave mine in the holster for today.
Good enough. Good enough.
All right, well,
All right.
good.
Well, we appreciate it, Hunter. Thanks
Yeah.
a bunch for coming in.
Nice
Good
meeting
to
you.
have you.
You want to hang around for a minute while we chit-chat?
Why not?
Other than just trying to unwire you in the middle?
Yeah, no
Okay,
kidding.
good enough.
Okay, so let's put this back away. I want to talk a little bit about a scenario that we have here in Pahrump, Dave. And
This should be fascinating.
well, we have a Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV, as we'll call it. And the DMV is supposed to be a full-service DMV, meaning everything you want to do, motorcycle, driver's license, all that good stuff, including when you get your driver's license for the first time in Nevada, you have to take a road test. Well, they only schedule road tests out to 60 days out. You can't schedule further than that.
Okay, so if you want to do it in 62 days, you're out of luck.
Yeah, you got to go online each day or make a phone call and schedule it.
Okay.
Online is usually the way to go. Well, for months, you've not been able to schedule in Pahrump under the presumption that they're really that booked up. So
How many people are getting their driver's license for the first time in this town?
quite a few.
No, I mean, really.
No, quite a few. And I'll tell you how I know this. The DMV in Tonopah, a little over 150 miles away, 60%, 60 to 70% of the people that are taking the driver's tests in Tonopah are from Pahrump. The reason this is, the person who used to be the driver road test person, the examiner, at the Pahrump DMV was promoted. Well, they never filled that slot. It's not that they've been busy and they've been 60 days out. It's not been a full-service DMV. They've had nobody there. So people are having to schedule about 6 weeks out in Las Vegas if you want to fight that traffic, or go to Mesquite, or go to Tonopah, or some even so far as Hawthorne, another nearly 100 miles outside of Tonopah.
Yeah, because first-time drivers really want to take their test in Vegas.
Exactly. And I know this because my girlfriend comes from the East Coast, from the Beltway area, and there's just mass amounts of public transit. She comes out here, now she's getting her driver's license. She needs to go take the road test, right? So we take her to Tonopah this last week, and as it turns out, we ended up having her driver's test was called on account of snow. It was horrible conditions driving into Tonopah.
I remember the night before you told me about that you were driving up there.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me you didn't get to take the test.
Oh, well, it wasn't.
Well,
like-
she
but
didn't
yeah,
get-
yeah, because it was called on account of. They actually took her out on the road, but you couldn't see any of the lanes, the lines, anything. They said, "Look, we can't even do this." It's
So you did a 6-hour round drive for nada.
That's 6 hours just in the car, not to
Right.
mention that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, from the time we left the house till the time we got home was 10 hours. In fact,
To not accomplish the goal.
right, because the appointment was at 9 a.m. and they wanted.
This is
to
government, folks. This is where am I here?
wait, over here.
Oh, over here. Okay. This is government, folks. 10 hours to get somebody a road test because of government.
And they actually waited an extra 30 or 40 minutes or so to take her out, hoping that the sun would come out and melt the snow and off. It just didn't work. Just made it sloppier conditions out there. So while we're waiting, I am texting my state senator, my state assemblyman, and 4 out of my 5 county commissioners, right? To which I'm just getting long-winded responses, especially out of my assemblyman. Now, he had called to try to find some information out about this the week or two before that. But now I'm like, okay, now I know the scenario. It's not that they're backed up and they need help. It's that they don't have anybody. I also found out, Dave, that the main DMV in Las Vegas, it's been there forever, on East Sahara, out kind of towards Boulder Highway, between Eastern and Boulder Highway, is closed for remodeling. They have 27 examiners in that building alone that they have distributed out to various other departments, be it...
But not tonight,
But not a single one temporarily out to Pahrump. Not one.
Right, which would make all the difference.
Of course it would. It absolutely would. And so it got to the point where I actually called yesterday, Tuesday of this week. I called and I called the director's office. They put me into some other office that's below the director, but directly in charge of this. And I said, there's an issue here. And it would seem, I understand you're doing hiring. I said, oh yeah, as a matter of fact, this week we're doing the interviews for the applicants, but it's still another couple of weeks till somebody get hired, another 3 or 4 weeks for them to get trained up. And so, end of March, maybe first part of April, we could actually have somebody there. And I said, and that's a massive inconvenience to the 10th largest community in the state. We've got nearly 40,000 people in Pahrump right now. And this is a huge inconvenience for those 40. And I know you've got 27 displaced examiners out of East Sahara. 27. Right. Just one. Take the rookie. Take the person lowest on the totem pole and say, look, because you're lowest on the totem pole, you're assigned out to Pahrump. I said,
temporarily.
Yeah, temporarily. And I said, that would really, really help. She says, well, we can look into that. I said, if you would, I'd appreciate it. And I'd also appreciate you calling me back and letting me know what the verdict is. I said, because I'm on a local television show, a weekly show, and we've been talking about this sort of thing, and people are interested in knowing. And I would like to let the public in Pahrump know what the DMV is going to do about our full service no longer being full service until another examiner comes in. Because by the time it gets around from when the person was promoted to where they replace that person is going to be probably around 9 months that nobody's been able to take a road test here.
Government.
Yeah. So
9 months to fill a single position.
And so I'm getting a hold of all the elected officials. It's their job really to do this.
You think?
But as it turns out, I had to get on the phone and do it. Okay, I'm willing to do that. I don't really like relying on other people to do stuff anyhow, but when it's the elected people that these government folks at the DMV should be responding to.
Yeah.
But when they don't even ask the question, I'll step in. And I'm not ashamed to have played hey, I got a local television program that we're going to go on and talk about this. I'm not afraid to play that card.
Did that seem to have any impact on her?
It did. It did. She said, oh, yes, sir, we'd be happy to get back to you. and how do you spell your last name again? Okay, let me read your phone. And she was a very pleasant lady.
And what's the name of the show?
Yeah. She was a very, very pleasant lady who got on the phone. She was very professional. And she sounded somewhat concerned, actually. It didn't sound like I was just being placated.
Okay, good.
So we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see. And I will be reporting back. If I don't hear by the time we come in next week to record the show, I'll call them right back again.
Yep.
And find out.
And, I just went through something with my insurance coverage. My doctor ordered some supplies, medical supplies for me, and it wasn't authorized. This insurance company said no. Right? It's like, this is not a discretion.
How is that not practicing medicine without a license?
Right, this is not a discretionary item also, I should add. And so I called the insurance company this morning, and they said my insurance is lapsing as of March 31st. I'm like, how is this even possible, right? This is not the terms of the agreement. And so she says, oh, here's what it is. One database says you're done on March 31st. The other database says your policy is up late in October of this year. I guess I need to get these two synced up. We'll have the technicians do it. I'm like...
Even so, it's not March 31st. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
You're ending me a month early? I think you owe me.
Yeah.
Anyhow, with that being said, we'll be back for segment 4 right after this. Welcome back. This is segment 4. Now, of course, we're going to talk about things like viewer emails, which we're going to hit. There were some questions about some Apple-related things. Some other emails I got about the caucus, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So send those to daveandbillshow@gmail.com. And of course, we love to hear from you. As well, all of our prior episodes, both the videos and just the audio, if you want to listen on your iPod Touch, or other listening device, totallyunprepared.info. That is the website to go to. Check it out and feel free to send us some emails. Now, Dave, just Tuesday night was the Nye County Republican caucus.
Yeah.
Donald Trump won our county. He also won the state with about 45%.
Was the county 45% too, roughly?
He had 980 out of about 1,750, so roughly.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he had, I guess that would be
Roughly
almost
40%.
Almost 50%, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
a little over that. So, anyhow, it was held at Rosemary Clark Middle School. It wasn't as smooth as we had hoped. It was pretty good, but there were a couple of things, so I wanted to chat about them because I'm getting those emails. First of all, a couple thousand people showed up. So the line was incredibly long, from the front of the school almost all the way down to the market.
I'm going to guess this is unusual.
Simpkins. Yes, unusual. This is the third presidential caucus year we've had in Nevada: 08, 12, and now 16. So this was really big.
So really, to put it in perspective for the audience, this is the third day that the Nye County Republican Party has ever done this.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And the first one I did not participate in. The second one I did. This one I've been chair of. But it did go fairly well. The biggest issue was this: lack of parking, especially for those who are disabled. And also, we thought we ran out of ballots, when in fact we found out later we didn't run out of ballots. We have tellers, that was their name, where they were tellers, right, ballot tellers, that held onto these ballots wrapped up in sealed envelopes of 50 that needed to hand those out as needed. When some of the precincts needed more ballots, they didn't know where to go to find the tellers because the tellers were actively participating in their own precincts. So we were around meeting until about 11:30 or midnight last night.
So it wasn't a supply problem, it was a communication problem.
Exactly, yeah, so it was an internal communication issue. What I would much rather see done in the future, but I got to tell you, I won't be chair then, because I'm leaving in another couple of months, but I would rather see an additional location, but the thing is, it's an all-volunteer organization. So with this all-volunteer organization, if you don't have enough volunteers, it makes it tough. And I got bogged down signing people into a precinct when I should have been coordinating a lot of things because we were minus a volunteer for that.
But this has been an issue before with people complaining concerning the Nye County Republican Party. How come this isn't done? We'd like to see this. I don't like the way you're doing that. And your answer has been, great, volunteer.
Please volunteer, please help us.
And of course, how many of them who complain volunteer?
1%, 2%, maybe 3%. But the thing, and I doubt that is secluded just to the Nye County Republicans.
Oh, I'm sure not.
I would
That's
imagine
human
that's
nature.
kind of. So with that being said, let me switch legs and we will switch topics about Apple.
Oh yes.
What's the latest? You just did it's not even a rant. It was an informational piece, nearly 18 minutes.
Yeah, an educational video on this subject. Yeah. If you want to see the educational video, go to, if you're on Facebook, go to Dave Champions Liberty. That's the name of the page. Click on videos, and you'll see one that says something about what you need to know or what you must know. And then
it's almost 18 minutes. It'll be the longest one there.
It says Apple versus the U.S. government or something to that effect. You'll see it. It's plainly obvious.
Quite a bit more articulate and a completely different format than your truck rant.
Oh, yes, the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
right?
It really is. I wonder how many people that have seen your truck rants that would see something like that and say, is that the same guy?
Oh, I got to tell you something. In the thread under that, somebody said, I can't believe you didn't do this as a truck rant. Sell out. It's like, what?
It's two different audiences.
Yeah. Well, certain subjects lend themselves to the truck rant, as you well know.
Absolutely.
And they've been very successful. Millions of viewers for many of these truck rants. When I do the educational ones, for instance, I put it up yesterday, and today it's at a whole whopping 10,000 views, right? So the educational videos don't incite the amount of visceral enjoyment, and people don't watch them. But I'm hoping people will go and watch this one because, as I said at the beginning of the video, without understanding all of the detail of what's going on here, one cannot make a sound decision on whether they support the government or they support Apple. And a Pew poll 3 days ago said 51% of the people support the government, which is a completely boneheaded position.
I can't trust that poll either. It's done by Pew.
It's the only one that's there for right now. Okay, it said 31%. 51% supported the government, 38% supported Apple, and then the undetermined. And
what we have is in your video, you have a copy of the court order that was issued.
Yeah.
And most people don't. They're arguing this point, having no idea what it is. And even if they do have a copy of it, they don't understand some of the terminology and what it means.
Right.
And you break all of that down wonderfully. I was certainly educated by it. I almost watched it twice, but It was caucus day,
Right.
and I was a little bit busy. It was tough to squeeze out the almost 20 minutes to watch
I'm
it
impressed
yesterday.
you watched it once on caucus day.
The moment that I had the opportunity to watch it, which was pretty soon, I watched it because I knew it was going to be a while, and I wanted to talk about it today, and I wasn't sure if there's going to be another opportunity.
And here's what you need to know. There's two primary points. The first one is that the FBI is not asking Apple to break into this phone. That is the propaganda that the government and its complicit media is putting out.
And I understand Apple's actually offered to do that, as well as other companies.
Right.
Yeah, we'll decipher that phone for you.
McAfee,
We'll get into it.
the guy who created the
John
antivirus.
McAfee.
Yeah, he's. But not when it comes to data and devices.
No, he's a little individually cuckoo, but yeah.
Yes, he's one of the best hackers on the planet.
Yes.
And he said he and his hacker team would get into the phone for free and leave Apple out of the equation. And Apple said, if you want us to get the data off of this one phone and give you the data, we will. And I think people are shocked. I know the people I've talked to have been shocked to find out that Apple's willing to do that and that that's not what the government is demanding.
Not even close.
Because the language of the order from the court to Apple says you will create this software that does not contain all of the privacy features that are stopping us, and then you'll give it to us. So they will have it and be able to get into any iPhone, millions, not any iPhones, because the later ones would be defeated. That software wouldn't work on the later ones. But millions and millions and millions and millions of iPhone all over the globe, the government would be able to get into them with this software. And that's what Apple is objecting to. Apple's saying, if you've got a warrant and you want to know what's on this phone, we'll do that for you. If you want a master key that unlocks millions upon millions upon millions of phones all over the planet, we're not giving you that.
Yeah, basically what it is the government's putting out, they're trying to get the sympathy that they want a macular solution on an individual device.
Right.
When in fact, they're demanding a global access to all devices that they would come in contact with.
Absolutely. The second thing people need to know is that the mechanism they're using, the All Writs Act, okay, does not permit, there's nothing in the All Writs Act. You can read the All Writs Act for yourself. If you Google All Writs Act, you can read the language. It's like 40 words.
No, you don't mean Ritz as in the cracker.
No,
you mean Ritz as in
W-R-I-T-S. Yes. Yeah, it's not putting on the Ritz.
Is it the low fat All Writs Act or
low
the
salt?
Low salt. Yeah. Okay.
But it's only something like 40 words, and you'll notice all it does is say that the courts can issue writs for its jurisdiction and appropriately to the usages and principles of law. Okay. By the way, writs means court order in modern language. This act was enacted in the 18th century in this country. Can you believe it? They're using a law from the 18th century because they got nothing.
18th century or 1800s?
18th century.
Okay, wow, okay.
1789 is when they enacted this
Oh,
law.
wow, around the time that the Constitution was. So
Immediately
this is
thereafter.
Incredibly early.
Yes.
Okay.
This
sounds like it might have been an effect of that to clarify some things.
Well, what they did is they created the Constitution and they immediately created the Judicial Act of 1789 to empower the courts. You got a court system, right? You got Article 3 courts. Now you've got to empower them.
This is part of the empowerment procedure.
Correct. The All Writs Act has nothing to do with trying to get into people's phones. And here's the thing that people need to understand about this. If the government can take this, if the executive branch can take this All Writs Act and convince the judicial branch that the judicial branch can then vest the executive branch through the court order with authority the executive branch does not have in law, okay? A judge waves his magic wand and says, I say you have the authority to conscript a third party in to assist you and cause them to create software and give you software that is a master key for millions upon millions upon millions of phones all over the planet. What it really is it is game over for the entire world as far as privacy maintained on electronic devices.
And what bothers the living hell out of me, Dave, is people who don't get it, that take the mantra of, well, I've got nothing to hide, and either should you. So it shouldn't be a problem for the government to be able to look at it, because when they look at good people and they see nothing, they'll move on. They should be looking for bad guys.
Yeah, I don't have anything to hide, so what's the privacy? That's the clarion call of a moron.
So, yeah, and then, my response is, cool, I get it. Give me your phone, unlock it so I can go through all the apps and take a look at what you got going on.
Well, not only this, my answer is if you have nothing to say, then you don't care. Free speech goes away. I mean, it's absurd. It's the call of the moron. And because here's the thing with this All Writs Act, if in the end, because this may go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, if in the end it is determined, and I can't imagine that it would be, thank you, Tim Cook, for standing up for our privacy. What it would mean is the federal government could go to every single manufacturer of every single electronic device that stores data in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be your cell phone. It could be your health records that you keep on some device at your house that interacts with your doctor, okay? Any device that has data on it that you consider private, they could go to the manufacturer and say, All Writs Act, give us a master key. To every electronic device in the world, if it's sold or possessed in this country. It is the end of privacy on electronic devices worldwide for the rest, as long as we're on this planet.
I would imagine, Dave, that there's got to be some existing judicial decisions out there, and contrary to this, and
yes. Few federal judges have said, no, forget it, this is nonsense.
And just going to some of the writings of the founders to understand that this is not okay. But the fact of the matter is as much as we would reveal the Constitution and having it properly implemented today, it's just plain not.
No. And the idea, one of the things I find so offensive about the government's position in this is it takes the position that anytime the government wants to take the privacy away from millions of people, done.
Not good for any of us. And folks, we'll be back next week.
Thank you.